ultimately, the question is, what impact would be reducing the capital budget on the operating budget? As we know, the capital budget that we have now was based on the initiatives of the prior council. We know that the electorate approved the borrowing capacity, but not the actual expenditures and programs of the capital budget. So to what extent and in which categories? As we know, we had categories under fixed costs, service gaps, and new investments. So very specifically, I want to understand the extent to which reducing the capital budget would have on the operating budget in one or all of those categories.
So the infrastructure renewal is in the category of service gaps, so that if we don't renew our infrastructure, then that will get, our gap will increase. So that is primarily debt funded for what we were just talking about, our utilities, our buildings. So we would need to reduce the work that we're doing on those buildings, and our infrastructure gap would grow. For every $10 million that we reduced, it would have $1 million impact on the operating budget because it's debt and we amortize it. So the impact of doing the work on the operating budget in a current year is about 1/10 the cost because you're amortizing it over the 10 years of the work.
What about fixed costs, though? I found, again, going through the budget presentation document, there was no dollar figures attached to the fixed costs, just a ticked box in which category it conformed. So I'm very specifically trying to understand if projects under the capital budget are decreased, if we were to take out it's not just buildings, but things like the Granville connector, for example. What impact would that have on fixed costs as well as looking at the service gaps?
Right. So I might have to have us do a little bit more calculation on specific numbers, but items that are growth, they're generally funded by DCLs and CACs, so those would not impact the capital budget or the operating budget. So it's in the capital. Anything that's in kind is in capital, and it wouldn't impact the operating budget. So those things that are new growth would not. It's the replacement items that are funded. The other things that are funded out of operating budget are things like IT. We have some planning dollars for things like the new City Hall precinct. We have dollars for street renewal. I think of other ones that are not debt funded. Those are the main ones that are funded directly from property tax, and then renewal is funded from debt. So if you stop doing something, for instance, in IT for $1 million, that would be coming right out of the operating budget in the current year of tax. If you stop doing something that's a renewal, then it would be 1/10 of that.
Okay, I understand that. But capital projects, and I'm not talking about community amenities that are funded through developer contributions. I'm talking very specifically about capital projects that were determined by the prior council that are being paid for out of debt. And should we determine not to proceed with those projects, the impact that would happen? It seems to me that would have an impact on fixed costs, particularly headcount, not just service gaps.
I do have some of that data, so let me get back to around on the next round. But again, from the debt side, it's for renewal, so it would be things that are not funded through debt. That we'd be talking about that would have an immediate impact.
Okay, well,
I'll get you the
pick it up
data.
further then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have that.